we came up with this collaboration platform, which is called Oxygen Content Fusion, to allow any Oxygen user to take advantage of the web author functionality when he interacts with other people he works with or she works with. Put a lot of work on the logo. That was 3-4 weeks. This is, I think, the 30th version of the logo. Really, a lot of work. But I think it's important, to get the right logo. So we want the people you collaborate with to have, really or almost no requirements. A browser, that's all we need. A modern browser. You've seen that the web author works on mobile, right? So it works on any modern browser, basically. So the requirements for the people you collaborate with are they need a browser. They need to follow a link, to be able to follow a link. On your side, people, I think these days at least, cannot really work alone. They need to interact, to collaborate. And you have access to Oxygen, others don't have, or may not have. Or they may not have access to, even if they have Oxygen, they may not have access to your versioning system or to your CMS, or you may be in a specific workflow, right? They may not have access to the repository, or you do not want to give them access to the repository, like direct access to the repository, because you want to check whatever they are producing before that will reach the repository. Or maybe you need, some less formal way of collaborating. Imagine that if you are a novice writer or person in a team, you may not want to commit to the repository without having someone just look over what you are about to push to the repository, right? Until you get up to speed, you may make some mistakes, and people will say, oh, "You didn't knew that?" I mean, we regret, that we got you in our team. So for all those reasons and more, we provide you Oxygen Content Fusion, which should allow you to create a review or collaboration task, get a URL that you share with people you want to collaborate with, and then you have an action that says get changes. So once they interacted with the documents that you shared, you can get those changes and have them in the original files that you used to start that review or collaboration task. And again, people you work with need only a browser. So as resources, you have XML files, data maps, images, video content, CSS files, maybe other resources. In terms of tools, so you have the Oxygen XML editor or XML author. Right now on the desktop, because we have this Content Fusion connector plugin, that's for the desktop version of Oxygen. We plan to have a similar plugin for Eclipse. So if you are using the Eclipse version of Oxygen, then you will have a plugin also in Eclipse. And then the Oxygen Content Fusion, which is a service that we host right now, but it can be installed also on premise. So you can have it, so no document will go outside your organization for different reasons. And we wanted, if you got the flyers, they say 1, 2, 3. You know, the collaboration made as easy as 1, 2, 3 because you have this create task, share the URL, and get the changes. And let's see that how that works. So, in order to use this, you only need Oxygen 19 right now. If you go to Help, Install New Add-ons, from here you select the default site, you get this Oxygen Content Fusion Connector Beta plugin. You install that, and after that you will have this nice Fusion icon on the toolbar, which should get you to this view that you see here, which says click to connect to Oxygen Content Fusion. This will allow you to, so you can follow those steps if you want. You know, install the plugin. This will allow you to log in with GitHub, with Google, with a Google account, or you can sign up for an account. And this will say successfully connected, and you get this placeholder to create a review task. If I have a data file, again data, tired of so much data. So you can drag and drop, for instance, or select a few files. In case of data, we automatically detect the map for the context, right? You can remove that, but then you will have only the topics without all references and all that part, and provide a summary for this task. And this will upload the task on the Content Fusion server. And if you click on that link, you can find the task here. You have the share button that will allow you to copy the URL that you can use to share access to this task. People will be able to, you know, access that on any device, basically. On their laptop, there will be no installation required. And when they click on a link, they get access basically exactly to those topics or those files you made available
So you're
in that review task.
So you can send that link to me.
Yes.
And I can get in through Author and get all of those resources that you pointed into this task.
Yeah, I can do that now. If I have my email. Yep. So if I delete something right now, it will use track changes markup, for instance. I don't need to save. It will automatically save. It says George changed this file. Maybe Wendell can also make an additional change to a file, or not. So were we able to access that?
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Okay. So everyone gather around. Yeah, so I can see back on my screen, I can see that this topic is logged by Wendell. So if I access this, it will be read-only for me. but I can edit the other topics which are not locked. So in order to solve, like concurrent access on the review tasks, if there are multiple people, we'll do automatic locking. But that may improve in the future, allowing people to work in the same time on the same document model.
How do I unlock it?
You just leave it.
Close that.
Yeah, that's how you should do it. So I see that Wendell also made some changes here, but also back in Oxygen I see 2 files changed. So I can also follow the link back to the server if I want to look there and see what changed. But I can also say get changes. And that will trigger, that's a scary word, the merge, because in case you made also changes locally, right? You have to merge the remote changes with your changes. But we use, so basically from the server, from Content Fusion, we have the base version, the files used to create the task originally, the remote modified version, and locally we have the locally modified version. So then you can apply a 3-way XML aware merge. And because it's XML aware, it will detect, if there are changes in the same file but not on the same elements, and you will get the automatically merge resolution for those files. And you can still, check and see all the changes and made to the files. This will be rendered in the outer mode in the next release. So the text div will be replaced with the visual rendering of the files for your convenience. Well, again, for this task, you can also control whether you want to force track changes on or not. So now we gather everything, we track changes. So now if we said apply, then we get the changes. I made the changes that Wendell made here, right? So I can now just go and say accept or reject on those changes. Accept change. And I will reject this one. Just because I can. That's it. We have more examples, so you can see that it's not only data, it works also with TI, with Dogbook, or with whatever framework you want to push on the Content Fusion server. You can also just refer a CSS or a schema. So you have the file, the CSS, and the schema that will work, and upload that on the task, and they have like relative references. It will work with any XML.
Is this question working in the SharePoint?
So that's a very good question, because the idea is that it comes exactly to my next slide, right? So the way this works is basically that whatever your workflow is, at some point you have the file locally and you have that accessible in the desktop version of Oxygen. Right? So you have some workflow and you have modified content. You have the file in Oxygen. You can modify that file by yourself, you can call somebody and talk to them and say, I have this file and it has this and that, and they can give you instructions and you can then modify the file. That's a form of collaboration, right? Or you can create a task, share the URL, have one or more people perform changes to that file, and then you click integrate or get changes to have those changes back into your local file. And then you continue that your workflow as if you had modified the files yourself, right? So basically this can be attached to any existing workflow as long as you have the files somehow accessible to the desktop version of Oxygen. Then you can span this additional workflow and have people interact with those documents. Again, you are in full control of the changes and what goes forward, continuing the workflow. You can reject them. You can modify those changes before you continue the workflow.
If you had conrefs and a data file, would you have to flip the library you have to check in? Would you also have to flip your library full of conrefs into content fusion along with the file that references it in order to resolve conrefs so that the end user can see the content you're referencing?
Of course, you cannot have information without being information there, right?
Okay.
So, but you do not have to do anything like manually putting. You've seen when I created a task with those topics from the data map, automatically the data map was set as the context when we had the images, which are not part of the task, right?
So what can detect the conrefs?
Yeah, so basically, if the review is done in the context of a map, all the topics are available. We export, we have an export data map in Oxygen functionality, which will take a map and find all referred topics and images, and will give you a package with all those resources. That's what we are using to create the review task, in case you have a context map.
And then one other question. You can edit the files right now. Is there a way you can set it to just do commenting so that the user would not have the ability to actually edit the content, but only suggest changes? Just more of a
You can
review.
do that in your CSS, right?
Well, there are some existing possibilities to restrict the access. One example that I have here uses a CSS let me show that. So I have, but you knew my presentation because yeah, I had this restrict folder here with a similar sample. People will think that we were talking before.
That is not a plan.
Oh, sorry. So here. So basically, in this topic, I refer to a CSS camera CSS. If we look at this, it says that the root element, we use this Oxy editable false, so you cannot edit the root element. But then this entry that has ID camera is editable, and we can show with a yellow background, for instance. So, put a gray background on the rest and have a normal background on this. What happens is that in the where was it? Oh, it was exactly this file. So here, when I try to type anything else, anywhere in the document I get read-only, you cannot edit, right? Except here where I can edit. And now if we create a review task with this topic, you know, but we need to add also the CSS file in this case. I go here and if I try to edit anywhere outside that area, I'm not allowed to. But you know, that's more like a convenience thing, because you have control anyway when the content comes in. So you can decide, you know, whatever you take. I mean, you can select, say, any changes, reject, and keep only the comments, for instance, or whatever. Yes?
If I started a review cycle, but then someone else on the team who has, you know, regular access made a commit, do I have to be careful that I don't update my version before I end the review cycle?
No, you should update your local version maybe, because you can then merge the remote changes with the three-way.
I just wasn't sure how, if,
but
if
you
the
can
remote merge would get confused because things had moved.
So there are two options basically, depending on how you want to continue your flow. So you can keep your local version unchanged, bring the remote changes in, and then you are in the same situation as if you had modified it yourself.
Correct.
And you had to merge, and use the support that you have to merge on that platform. And on that platform, on any platform, you can integrate also the three-way XML diff that we provide. It has a command line arguments, and it can be integrated with diff and merge tools. So then you can use this XML-aware diff and merge also at that level. Or you can bring those changes, you know, let your local version evolve to the latest, let's say. We have the base and the remote. This comes from the Content Fusion. And then you do the three-way merge when you say get changes. And you integrate. And there are chances, you know, that you'll have automatically merge everywhere.
Right.
And you'll just get them. If there is exactly the same element, you will have to manually resolve that. Yeah. What else? Yes.
This is all happening on your servers, the Content Fusion, is that correct?
Yes. So right now it's a service on Amazon Cloud. Uses the web author. So what you see in this part is the web author. The top part and the left part is part of the Content Fusion server.
And it's for no extra cost, is any space or time limitation?
Well, so we have this until November available in beta. Further on, we were thinking about providing also a zero-cost package with some limitations, and then maybe a subscription for the authors that create tasks, not for the people that use those links or provide you feedback. You don't need necessarily to use this for review. So, for instance, if you have like a new document, we have, you know, you can add comments and say put this here or do this. But we added in 19 support for this OXI placeholder processing instruction, where you can specify, you can control the grade text that appears when an element is empty, right? So as soon as you type in, something, that processing instruction disappears. And but that still is available during this editing session. So then you can have like a new document template, or if you have like an API documentation, for instance, you can have the stub with the function, the parameters, all that, and then put some instructions for an engineer or for somebody else on what you expect them to provide you, right? Then you can basically share this like a task, like a URL, and so when they receive the URL from you, they are in front of this, right? So they can just fill in the information that you need, and then you can say get changes, and you have it. And you, I don't know, if it's data, you add related links, you may add keywords, and so on and so on, and then you can commit it to the repository. Yes?
One quick question. How would you, can you explain again how you would push a DTD or schema change to the Fusion server? Is it just a copy and paste to that, or like how would you, if I make a schema change or DTD change, how do I get that?
So if you want to control, let's say, the DTDs and schemas and CSS, probably an on-premise installation would be easier.
Yeah.
We'll think to see if it's possible. I mean, there are so many ideas to expand this. One idea would be that you create an organization account on Content Fusion, and you upload your own frameworks. So then when you upload a task, you already have everything set up there, right? Right now, if you have a file with a relative reference to a DTD or a schema, you upload both the file and the schema, like I did with the CSS earlier. The CSS DTDs are not visible on the side view, so they are not visible for contributors to click and edit, right? But then you control, that specific schema or DTD used by the document that you upload. That happens also when let's try to create, let's go to the sample project, because here we have a TI maybe document. So this P5 document, I think it has also some 3 images. So if I do not upload the images, then they will obviously not be rendered. Another enhancement for the plugin side this time is that we can, at least if you are in the author mode, we can automatically determine all images used. If you had a conref, all the other topics from where content was pulled into into the document that you are looking at. So rather than doing a data map export, we can create a package with only those resources, maybe. I don't know. But also for dogbook or TI, you can identify at least images that are used in your file and push them automatically or we may have, a framework-specific extension that will say what's a reference, so we can create a package maybe. So there are some ideas to improve that, but right now you can just create a task with these TI files, provide a name, upload, and now we shared a TI document, and someone, as I sent the link to Wendell earlier, maybe I will send a link to David so he can access the TI document following that link without any setup. So, like if you have people that you would like to contribute to or look over, verify a TI encoding document, that may be a good way to get them interact. Yeah, so basically now we have a TI document shared on the Fusion platform.
Since Fusion reviewers is kind of layered on top of the web author, do all Fusion reviewers consume a web author license?
We are thinking to have that in if you install on premise.
Mm-hmm.
So at least for a number of licenses for the web author, for some packages, to basically give you also the Content Fusion service to install and connect it to consume those web author licenses.
Okay.
And then you can use, that pool of licenses can be used in workflows, like in the first part,
Mm-hmm.
or they may be reused basically through the Content Fusion for those contributors. But on the service that we provide, there's no license cost for contributors.
Okay.
And we do not plan to have that. So we plan the authors, because if I share this document and I give you the link, you do not expect to pay anything to access that, right? So, and I'm the one that benefits basically from your feedback.
Right. I just wasn't sure from the licensing view if you were buying reviewer licenses for Fusion, which kind of pseudo came bundled with web author, if you're buying web author and Fusion was free from the on-site installation view. I guess the service view is
Yeah.
completely different.
Yeah. So we're thinking about Content Fusion also as a way to drive web author reach, to make it useful. So yeah, so that's one of our ideas right now to probably, if you get web author licenses, we should be able to offer you the Content Fusion just to use them, like those licenses. And then you have, both the integrated workflows and the collaboration, which will stay inside your organization. Not that we are doing, anything with the shared data, but some people have different concerns.
Lots of people are paranoid for different reasons.
Yeah. So some of the functionality that we have now, and we tried very hard to cut as much as possible, to remove as much as possible. So the main focus was to have this as simple as possible, as easy as possible. So you can have one or multiple files supporting different vocabularies. We will add JATs probably at some point on the shared service. So if there is interest in that, then we can have that added. In the meanwhile, you can just have a reference to a CSS and you get a rendering, or you have a reference to the schema and you get the content completion validation and all that. And if you control the CSS, you can inject inline actions rather than toolbar actions. But still, you have actions. we have the automatic locking, and I said maybe we will do. We have block level locking maybe at some point, or even allow people to actually write on any part of the document, like Google Docs does, for instance. So this supports multiple reviewers or contributors. You can control track changes on or off. You can have the Oxygen comments, which will work between the desktop and the web. And we reuse that three-way XML-aware three-way diff and merge on the client side to integrate the changes back. And there is support for sending some messages. So here you see you can add, say, done editing or so. On the reviewer profile, so right now I'm the owner of the task. On the reviewer profile, like when they'll access that file earlier, you do not have the control to turn off track changes because they are forced to be on this task. And you have a message that says finished, a button that says finished, which will add a special message or say, I'm done with this, so that you as an author, let's say, can see, the people that I shared this said, all of them said that they finished. Yeah, so you have also this task level messaging support here. So almost just in time for the break. So thank you, and I hope you will take good use of this and give us feedback. We have yes.
Yeah, to answer the question, this actually can work on with SharePoint as a backend repository?
No, so this is separate. So you have a workflow. You at some point, if you have the files locally, then you can trigger this. But the files are not on SharePoint.
But the repository, where are you going to save it? If I implement an on-premises implementation, I need a database to save this, right?
So we use the REST API right now for the repository, and it's an implementation. I don't know what we are using behind that, but I think if you install it on premise, you can change those REST scripts. Those scripts to push the content to whatever repository. So it may be SharePoint if you want to, but I'm not sure why you will want that to be necessarily on a SharePoint repository. Because this is separate, from your actual repository. It should be somewhere else. You should not really care that much about that repository, right?
In your current implementation, if I assume it's ephemeral, that once a review is done, you don't care anymore.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's not a traditional repository where you would care, because this review cycle happened and then I moved on with my workflow.
Yeah, we were also thinking to set some. So we had really many ideas to like setting a timeline for. You have 3 days, then the task will just vanish. If you don't provide feedback in 3 days, it will not be available anymore. Automatic notifications. There are so many ideas around that. Provide more context when you use data, for instance, like a projected view of the 5 topics that you created, so you can see them in the map hierarchy, kind of, keeping the order that you have in the map, or the nesting level that you have in the map, so you can have like a data map view, and so on and so on. So there are many ideas on how this can evolve. We just wanted to have the minimum viable product, so people can use it and discover what they need, because yeah.
Would it be possible
code to restrict what a reviewer can do rather than allowing them to make any change, like allow them to insert comments, for example?
As I mentioned, you've seen the example with the CSS that can limit to a specific part, but we do not have, if something is not editable, you cannot insert even comments. But probably that will be one in the task settings. You can say, right now you say force track changes on, but you can say maybe in the future restrict to comments only. Or I don't know. Depends, on real use cases and your feedback. So thank you and enjoy the coffee break.